Prime Minister Rishi Sunak was dealt a blow by his country's top court this week. In fact, the UK Court of Appeal ruled on Thursday that his government's plan to deport asylum seekers to Rwanda is unlawful. Now, Britain planned to send thousands of asylum seekers more than 6,000 kilometers away to the East African country. At the same time, if you can imagine it, the UK's High Court is also considering whether redacted documents, including Boris Johnson's WhatsApp messages, can be included in an inquiry into the country's COVID-19 response. Now, for more on this, I'm joined now by eNCA's correspondent in London, Julia Chapman. A very good afternoon. Thank you so much for making the time. What is the latest that you can share with us around this matter?
Well, on the Rwanda issue, the government of the UK says it is going to appeal to the country's Supreme Court, the highest court in the UK, after the decision by the Court of Appeal that its plans to send migrants to Rwanda was unlawful. The basis for this decision, which was not a unanimous one, 2 out of 3 judges agreed that Rwanda was not a safe country for processing asylum seekers. It found that there were discrepancies and some issues in its asylum application process, which could have resulted in some migrants being sent back to the countries they came from, raising fears about their safety. Many of these migrants are fleeing for various reasons, including persecution in their home countries. Now, the government here in the UK has been under immense pressure to get immigration figures down. Net migration last year was over 600,000, so 600,000 more people came to the UK than left it. And that is the highest number in many years. And in the Conservative Party base, there's a lot of emphasis on getting that figure down, particularly those who are travelling to the country across the English Channel in small boats and other unofficial methods of immigration. So this was the government's plan to solve that. It has been dealt a major blow by this finding that it was unlawful, but the government says it's going to pursue this with every legal option it has at its disposal.
When we talk about process, I mean, what sort of boxes do you need to tick as a migrant to land up as an asylum seeker in the UK?
Well, there are many different requirements, and it depends where a person has come from, why they have left that country, and crucially, as the UK government is emphasising, how they came to this one. The government says that people should only use safe and legal routes to enter the UK. There are very few of those available for people from certain countries. There are really 3 main avenues for people to come to the UK legally as migrants if they are not being sponsored by a work visa. And those are effectively, they have to be a citizen of Ukraine, Afghanistan or Hong Kong. There are very limited other methods for entering this country. And so there are critics of the government who are saying there are no other options for many people who want to come to the UK. Of course, many of them are travelling through Europe. They're going through a number of other safe countries before they get to the English Channel, and that's what the UK government likes to emphasise, saying there are plenty of other places they could go. But of course, many of those travelling to this country have family here. They may speak English and decide that that is why this is the right destination for them to seek a new life. So there are lots of hurdles. The process is incredibly long, and even when they make it to the shores of the UK, they could find themselves in holding pattern for many months. The legal process is long, so certainly there are a lot of emphasis, there's a lot of different things being weighed up, but the government really focusing on getting immigration numbers down.
Julia, when we talk about cost, I imagine the government has taken into account the amount of money it is going to cost to deport asylum seekers. Do you have any figures for us that you can share this afternoon?
Yes, so the latest research and investigation into how much this Rwanda plan would have cost or will cost if it does eventually go ahead is that it would cost around £169,000 per asylum seeker to send them to Rwanda. Now, that is obviously a huge amount of money, but the counterclaim is that the government says it would cost around £100,000 to process them here. That said, obviously there is about a £60,000 difference, meaning it is more expensive to send them to Rwanda than it is to keep them here. The government emphasizing again that that is not the only consideration, that many people who come to this country are dependent on the state for quite a long time. They may not necessarily have all the skills to get a job. They may not be contributing to the tax bill of this country. So cost is a very complicated factor, but the government insisting that this would have been an effective method of disincentivizing people from coming to this country in the first place, and that would have meant that the overall cost of processing asylum claims would have gone down because of the Rwanda plan.
And before I let you go, Julia, would the UK Prime Minister have an alternative plan in as far as appealing this decision by the courts? If so, what would that plan, hypothetically speaking, look like?
The government hasn't referred to any other alternative plan apart from appealing this decision. Other experts have suggested that the government might start looking at other countries where it could make an agreement. Of course, the UK government and the government of Rwanda came to a deal to allow for this plan to be in place. Rwanda has insisted that it is a safe country, that it has the capacity to process asylum claims. It was willing to go forward with this if the legal obstacles could be overcome. But the UK could be forced now to look elsewhere to see whether there are other countries it could do a similar deal with. That would involve much money in the way of investment from the UK government as an incentive to another potential country to take in and process these refugees and asylum seekers. But certainly nothing like that has been put forward by the government yet. It says it is still going to pursue the legal options.
And of course, we've heard of other countries exploring things like refugee camps. I don't imagine the UK has asylum camps of that nature to house these asylum seekers, Julia.
No, certainly that's not something that is under consideration. There are facilities that do hold asylum seekers temporarily while they are being processed. That has been something that is also very contentious in this country. Often hotels are used, facilities run by big security companies. That's been very controversial as well. The government has been looking for other accommodation that it can use in order to deal with what is, in fact, a growing number of asylum seekers coming to this country, particularly over the English Channel in small boats. Last year, there were around 47,000 people coming to this country in that way. The government says that is illegal. Human rights groups point out that there aren't really alternatives for most of these people who are coming from various parts of the Middle East and Africa. But certainly there won't be any kind of refugee camps here in the UK, and the government very keen to find an alternative place to take in these people trying to seek asylum in the UK.
Julia Chapman, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Live to us from London, that's eNCA correspondent Julia Chapman. Still to